So the underlying bill was 2926, but there's been a substitute,
Okay.
LC 363024S.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Leader Abrams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last year in 2015, I was privileged to chair a study committee investigating the needs of kinship care families in Georgia. We discovered through 4 hearings in Dalton, Albany, Savannah, and Atlanta that there are more than 128,000 families that are kinship care families. To define a kinship care family, essentially, these are people who have informal non-custodial responsibilities, they have informal custodial responsibilities for children. These are typically grandparents, but they include aunts and uncles, cousins, and family friends. In the state of Georgia, you roughly have about 15,000 children who are in de facto custody through foster care or who have additional placement. These are the families where instead of going through the court system or going through foster care, they place the children in basically in the custody of family members and relatives. Georgia has the 8th fastest growing population for kinship care children in the country. And the 3 major reasons are military deployment, incarceration, and drug use. What we've been doing over the last few years is working with the governor's office to address as many of the kinship care issues as possible through non-legislative means. And I want to give a great deal of credit to the governor's office for their responsiveness on this issue. Initially, the governor was very kind to add kinship care navigators. These are people who work in the Department of Human Services, who work for DFACS, and their sole responsibility is to help families navigate kinship care issues. How do they access services for these children? How do they help move children through the system? And how do they help the grandparents primarily who find themselves in often their twilight years raising 2-year-old and 3-year-olds? However, over the last few years, we've discovered that in addition to the great benefit these navigators provide, there are some deficiencies in the rules for how families are helped. There are some issues with policies, and so we requested a study committee, and this is one of the findings of the study committee. This bill, Mr. Chairman, would create the position of kinship care enforcement administrator. This person would sit in DFACS and would report to the Commissioner of DFACS. This person would have the chief responsibility of being the point person in DFACS for kinship care families. This is a position that would not require additional resources. I've spoken with the Commissioner and with the Governor's office. This is a position that could be created using existing resources, but it would serve the purpose of being the point person for these families. One of the challenges facing DFACS and facing kinship care families is that because you typically have grandparents who are raising grandchildren, you also have an intersection with the with the Agency on Aging. They have done extraordinary work, and there are services that are available because of the grandparents' age and their status. And there also needs to be a point person who can navigate between both DFACS and aging to help assist these families as they move forward. And so this bill, which is a very simple bill, would simply create this position. It would allow this administrator to coordinate navigators, to manage interagency concerns, but also to improve uniformity across counties. One of the things we learned during our hearings across the state is that depending on the county that you sit in, you may have access to DFACS resources, or you may be told that you aren't entitled. And so you may have a child who came to you overnight, and suddenly, while you had sufficient funds to take care of yourself and your family, you now have 5 new children in your family. You are entitled to apply for resources, but depending on the county that you're in, you may be told that you are not entitled. The creation of this position would create a point person who would have responsibility to monitor and provide oversight, but also have a means of appeal for families who need to get better access and who also need some advocate within DFACS to help them navigate the situation. The last thing is that this is a person who would have specialized knowledge to support these families, and so for those reasons I bring forth HB 962 and ask for your favorable consideration.
Okay, are there any questions of the presenter? Okay. Representative Spencer.
Is there any people in the department doing any cross, I guess they're doing parts of this work? I mean, how many and Why are we putting it down into one person at this point?
Thank you, Representative Spencer. And I want to acknowledge that Ashley Fielding is here from DFACS. But the simple answer is that there are a lot of people doing this work. You have multiple points of entry into the need for kinship caregiving. Some grandparents have perfectly adequate financial resources but may need support because the child has special needs. You have some aunts or uncles who've taken on responsibility and simply don't know how to navigate the system. And so the question is, how do you enter DFACS and what questions do you have? If you're a grandparent, you may come to have custody through aging, but you need DFACS support because of the needs of the children. This is simply adding to what has been an ad hoc process, and I want to give Commissioner Cagle a great deal of credit. He's done extraordinary work on relative care placement and on helping solidify and strengthen the kinship care family process. This simply adds another tool in his tool belt so that we can continue to provide the best services possible to these families who are serving more than 100,000 children in our state.
Representative Ballinger.
Thank you. Minority Leader Abrams, I do commend you for bringing this bill before the committee. It's a really great. And isn't it true that this position that you're creating will just basically be over the existing kinship navigators? In other words, somebody will be kind of in charge to basically help Georgia craft best practices.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
Yeah, and there's no fiscal note because it will be somebody that's created from within DFACS, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Representative Quick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I know we've got, I think, perhaps some people signed up to speak, so I won't belabor this, but I'll just ask, Madam Leader, if you'll consider that the language in the bill says there is created the position, which might suggest creating a new position. And so I know that the kinship navigators are in the FY17 budget, but would it be equally accurate or perhaps easier for me to vote yes if we use the word designated as opposed to creating a position and made it clear that this administrator was within the existing personnel of the Department of Human Services instead of leaving that for future budget vagaries?
So the navigators are, and I appreciate the question, Representative Quick. Right now, you have kinship care navigators, and these are people who work for DFACS who are dispatched across the state. There are currently 15 navigators. The budget now adds an additional 10. This administrator would actually have responsibilities that are slightly broader than a navigator. A navigator is regionally located to provide support services within those regions. This administrator would have the responsibility, as Representative Ballinger pointed out, to help manage those navigators, but they would have the additional responsibilities of also supporting concerns that come from the Department of Aging. The challenge there is that there are federal funds that go to certain departments for use by kinship care families, but the issue is that you have interagency responsibilities. This person would have that responsibility as well, and they have a larger responsibility for simply managing the millions of dollars and the multiple services that come through. So a navigator's responsibility is a very specific one. Yeah. The conversation that we had with both the second floor and with Commissioner Cagle is that we are creating a specific position in order first and foremost to give heft to the responsibility. This is a major issue facing the state. We have a fast-growing population, and we have not had a single point of contact. But as you know, there is no room in the budget. There is no request in the budget. This is going to be taken from someone who currently sits in that department, but their responsibility and their title is Kinship Care Enforcement Administrator, and it is designed to give heft and meaning to that responsibility.
Should be a survey. Should be appointed by the commissioners. Okay. Let's see who I have. Representative Raffensperger.
So if I understand this correctly, this is actually a person, a position. So I just have to ask, should the K, the C, the E, and the A be capitalized because it's actually like vice president, branch manager, so it's actually a position. Would that be, so it sort of identifies it as a position?
I will defer to legislative counsel, but I will tell you from my time serving in code revision, I believe the current practice is to not capitalize these positions in legislation. Are
there any other questions of the presenter? Hearing none, do I have anybody else? Well, would you like to make further comment?
I would just
Leader
ask for your
Abrams?
favorable consideration.
Okay. All right. I'll entertain a motion. Is there somebody else? Is anybody else signed up to speak on this? Bill, yes.
Johanna Marchison?
Come on up to the podium if you would. That's Johanna Murkison.
Marchison, yes. Good afternoon, Mr. Chanman and members of the committee. My name is Johanna Marchison. I'm a student at Emory University School of Law, and I work with the Barton Center. Melissa Carter gives her regards. Unfortunately, she was unable to be here today because she's teaching a class. At this time, the Barton Center would like to acknowledge its support of Leader Abrams' kinship care work, specifically HB 962 and HB 963. Additionally, we would like to support and acknowledge the work of Representative Estration in HB 887. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. All right. Okay, I'll entertain a motion. Okay. Representative Jones, motion do pass. Do I hear a second? Okay, you got a second. Okay. All right. Representative Ballinger.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to amend.
Okay.
On lines 13, instead of period, put comma, who shall be appointed and serve at the discretion of the Commissioner of the Department of Human Services.
Okay. Now, so that starts after the word, on line 13, Department of Human Services, and then change the period to a comma?
Who shall, actually, who shall be appointed and serve at the discretion of the Commissioner.
All right. Can I get a comment from legal counsel regarding that amendment?
I've gotten in trouble on this one before, so. Okay. Good.
Okay.
All right. And second motion, do we need to take a vote on that
Yeah,
first?
let's do
Okay.
that one first.
A second.
Okay.
Representative Ballinger's motion.
Okay, got the Ballinger amendment, first Ballinger amendment. Got a motion and second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Passes. Unanimous. Okay.
Okay.
Representative Ballinger.
And the second amendment would be to strike the words at line 18, strike the words close family friend, strike those three words, and insert fictive kin as defined by Code Section 1511-2.
And put what now?
Strike close family friend and insert the words fictive kin as defined by Code Section 1511-2.
I can't understand the first word. Insert what?
Fictive. Yeah.
And just for the benefit of the committee, fictive kin is defined in the Georgia Code, Section 15-11-12. And I had to, the reason when I was preparing for this meeting today, I had to look it up myself. And fictive kin is defined on number 33 in that subsection. It says, means a person who is known to a child as a relative but is not, in fact, related by blood or marriage to such child and with whom such child has resided or had significant contact. If I could just get comment on the Leader Abrams regarding that modification.
I see no challenges with that. I think it's a precise definition.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Representative Jones.
That was my question to ask the
Okay.
author, what she think of the amendment.
Okay. Representative Spencer.
I want to make sure fictive with an F,
Yes.
okay, like fiction, fictive, okay.
Right.
Because it sounds like it's a V when you're saying it.
F. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm a North Georgia accent, sorry.
Okay. All right.
So the second amendment.
Have a second to the amendment.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Passes. Okay. Any other comment, questions of the presenter by the committee? Seeing none, up, legal counsel.
Just from a draft perspective, do you have any objection to doing normal style, which is definitions first, language second?
No, but I think that'd be,
The way
that'd
we
be,
normally do it is we do a definition, and we use the operation of it.
right.
So I'll rearrange it so that it makes, it's in that order.
So, well, we're going to have the definition of what a fictive kin?
And the other one is kinship caregiver.
Where is kinship? Is kinship caregiver in that same section? Okay. I mean, is it on, I mean, is it defined in the code otherwise?
So it's being defined right here.
Yes. Yes,
Trying to get it in
right.
style so that when you see it back, it doesn't, so you don't think I've worked some other magic on it.
Some of that Jill magic. Okay, yes, we'll
If you only have
give
one
you,
definition, I'd say leave it the way it is. Now you've got two, let's do it the way we normally do it.
right,
That's my suggestion.
right. And that's, what I think that'll straighten out some of, okay, Representative Spencer.
Would we need a motion, Mr. Chairman, to do that?
I don't think we need a motion to do that. That's a drafting issue, and it's not changing the substance of the bill. It's just outlaying, or it's putting the definitions before subsection C. I think, is that accurate,
Right.
Mr. Travis? Okay, a C1 and a C2 is what that would do. It's just organization, not. All right, all those, well, I'm going to call the question on the bill, which is LC 363024S, as amended by the Ballinger amendments. Correct? Okay. All those in favor of the bill, the do pass motion indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Bill passes the rules. I'm sure you have somebody there that can ask for that bill.
I will see if I can find some.
Okay, now moving on to HB 962, and I'm going to need, let me find, 963, I'm sorry. I don't have a copy of that. Well, maybe I do. This is the one I've been marking up. Okay, can you go ahead and tell us?
This is LC number 362932ER.
Okay. All right, Representative Abrams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I mentioned, we have tried to find all of the policy areas where the issues for kinship care families have created some difficulty. And one of the strongest issues is the uneven application of the Department of Education's responsibilities and rules when it comes to taking a child into school, being able to admit a child to school. What the